I'll give it one shot, and if it doesn't work, I'll give up. It just doesn't, straight out doesn't fit. Just do one of those, basically. And get rid of this one. That's nice. I think it's worth it. All right, looks like you guys are ready to go. Let's take a look at our framing here. We'll stick this on this side of the screen, give this one of those. And ladies and gentlemen, do you want to just steer?
Huh?
You want to just steer? Or we can do like one of these?
Sunglasses or no sunglasses?
Well, you buffed them in the last patch.
Let's do the sunglasses.
All right, so
We'll co-host.
Co-host? All right, I'm in. So here you go. Guys, welcome to our preview basically here of what is coming up. We have a big Smite update, of course, PTS going out now. Looks like we have shored up any dropped frames, and we're also broadcasting at a bit of lower bit rate, so it should be easier for some of you in Europe if your CDM is not that great. Once again, welcome. This will be the information about the update. Aaron's going to bring it to you. He is, of course, our CEO, lead janitor, and executive designer, sir. Welcome to the show.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, so how would you like to do this? I mean, I'm happy to, kind of moderate it, or do you want to just rip through it, or kind of?
You can moderate.
All right, so let's
big patch.
Big patch, right? So this is going to be the biggest patch we've had, I think, in any of our games, right? I mean, it's like
I don't know.
It's pretty serious. I mean, it's I would say personally that it's a bigger deal for Smite than Accelerate was for Tribes, which was the patch that brought in the new UI and all that fun stuff. I mean, this is a big deal. Sorry guys, got to turn the music off. There you are. So this should be it's a substantial change in terms of mechanic. Basically, we're introducing an entire new entire new knob to play with, basically. It was called Focus. And Focus is, as you may have read on the forums, basically measures utility. So things like durations.
We'll talk about that as
we get into it.
Slides.
All right, so let's get into it. So
yeah, let's go through slides.
The first thing that is here is the Conquest map changes. So, basically, my understanding of this is that, you do have those outside jungle lanes are gone.
You read the things.
Okay.
And then I will explain the reasoning.
Got you. Okay. Conquest map changes. No outside jungle. 4 jungle buffs per side. No health, no shield. So no yellow, no green. 2 neutral jungle camps per side, which do not have buffs. And a reduced line of sight into the lanes. So that's kind of the goals here of the Conquest map, and kind of what are some of the reasons, I guess, behind that.
It's kind of funny looking at you with glasses. 2 glasses, I can't see anything.
The clash of glasses?
I really can't see much. So if all of a sudden I whack him in the head by accident, that was just pure accident. Let's see. What we tried to do for this is allow players to be more active in the map. The outside jungle lanes were removing some of the players from the combat. It was taking too long to go from place to place, and it didn't allow for roaming as much as we wanted to. So with this change, we're hoping for some more roaming, not necessarily a dedicated jungler role, but we still want to find a way to give that as an option if it's wanted. And for reduced line of sights in the lanes, we put obstacles in some of the corners of the lanes so you can't see quite as far, which allows for better ganking and some more of those exciting moments where somebody jumps on you or you're jumping on someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my limited exposure to this map so far, I mean, mid lane is no longer quite as controlling, I guess, in terms of like the flow of ganking, right? Like you can't see the guy coming in from forever away. You can't see him basically right when he passes the Phoenix, like, hey, this guy, what are you looking for this?
Oh, here's the red hat.
They
won't stop in chat unless I put on a hat.
That's true. So basically, you can't see the guy like leave his base immediately. There's a little bit more positioning involved with it. You guys, I think, will like it when you see the changes to the map. I did see in chat, basically, was this a change towards a more traditional MOBA map? And I guess what are kind of the benefits thereof?
It's a little more traditional, but more than anything else, it's to allow for more juggling if needed, as well as keeping the action more in the middle of the game versus having people just going out in the outside lanes.
Sure. And then basically the reasoning behind removing green and yellow was that too much lane control was possible with them, correct?
Too much lane control, and it would be too many buffs inside the jungles. We wanted less buff camps, so there would be more focus on actually fighting over them.
Gotcha. Well, I think we're ready to move on to the next slide, but those are your Conquest map changes, guys, so that will be coming, and you can take a look at that on the PTS, of course, which is deploying right now. Ability changes, and this is where we get into Focus. So the new Focus attribute has been added to abilities. It can be stacked up to 100, so 0 to 100. And it scales utility of abilities. So here's some examples. Strength of buffs and heals. So like a hell heal would scale off utility, not necessarily magic power. Strength of debuff and like speed and protection. So things like, I guess hell's another good example. Her black number 2 would further debuff them to magic damage with focus. And stuns or fear, of course, as well.
Yeah, a lot of slows, stuns.
So basically all of the, really anything that would fall under CC in general will be affected by focus. Focus does not impact damage directly, so something like on her's number 2 that pins, it just won't pin for very long, but it still does full damage. And most gods now start with lower utility by default, so in a way this basically is not necessarily adding CC to the game. It's more like they have been nerfed and you can get them back to their current playable or a little bit above or under depending on any balance changes that were pending to where they are currently in live. So this is much more of a, I guess in my like understanding of it, it seems like that things like one of the most marked examples I think would be like Agni. Like you can build him as a straight damage dealer, but those stuns are not going to be very effective. Or you can build him straight utility.
Yeah, well, Agni is actually one that has very few focus attributes.
Really?
And
Okay.
Because it's only a stun.
Right, it's only a 1 second stun.
It's only a 1 second stun. Whereas somebody like Anhor has all 4 abilities. Right?
All 4 of his abilities are affected by so
because there's slows,
slowing,
there's debuffs,
stunning. Yeah.
There is stuns, right? And each one of them scales. So first, one thing that everybody has to remember is that all of the utilities, whether they're stuns, slows, etc., have basically been cut by half. And with 100 focus, you build them back to where they were.
Ah, okay.
That's how we were first starting it, and then we will adjust from there to give people more or less inherent abilities. Yeah, longer stuns or shorter stuns, and balance based on that. But it does keep people the option. So this will also go very much along with the new item changes because it's very difficult to go as a full carry, for example, and start building a lot of focus as well.
Right, right.
So you have to decide what role you want to play.
So, I mean, do you think this is the goal of this to lead to more build and role diversity in gods? I mean, is that kind of the ultimate goal here?
It definitely leads to more role diversity. It lets us balance particular gods better than we were able to do before. And it lets people make a decision just how much they need of that particular attribute.
Is there anything that will be able, with focus, stronger than it is currently?
Right now, there is not that case.
So there is no stun longer than 2 seconds in the game still, basically, is kind of the answer there. Yeah, so I mean, obviously gods like Amir are going to be very, very heavily focused in focus. So, you know, can a tank like that build into items that are defense and focus based, or is it focus items?
So a tank would be a good example of someone who can build a nice balance between utility and tanking that allows them to still have all the focus that they needed and be able to tank. But it would be very difficult to build a tank with focus and doing damage at the same time. That just doesn't work.
Okay, so you're not going to see damage and focus items being very prevalent. There may be 1 or 2, but primarily it's going to be things like defense items with focus or other utility things?
It's actually mostly on utilities and auras with some other specific items.
Okay, so things like Sovereignty, Void, Stone, Frostbound Hammer, like is Frostbound Hammer one? No. So like Jumbo Ice, so those CC causing things don't have utility, and they don't scale off of utility, do they?
Hammer may have it actually, out of all things that you mentioned.
I think it may.
That one might be the only AD one that has it.
So yeah, so there's an example. So that would be like a fringe case where something actually has attack power,
because it is designed to be a more of a utility.
More utility item. And then are things like Creeping Curse, Heavenly Agility, Frostbound Hammer, Gem of Isolation affected by focus?
Abilities are not affected by focus.
Okay, only abilities are affected, or not purchase abilities. Only skills are affected by focus. There we go.
Right.
So I think there's your ability changes stuff. I don't see any more real questions popping up, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. We are now introducing a match of the day here, guys. Basically, every day Smite will have a new fun mode to play. These are like, all Cupid versus Cupid on Arena, Magic users versus tanks on Joust, melee gods only, girls versus boys, Pantheon battles, those kinds of things. Just another like fun little queue for you guys to pop in and out of. And I guess what else is there for them to learn and do with this?
It's just fun as
just
hell.
For fun. Right on.
Every day is different. It will not duplicate.
For instance, I saw you guys playing what was it, like Battle of the Underworld? And it was
we played Faces of Death.
Faces of Death, right?
It's
And it's
only underworld characters.
Hades, Hell, and Anubis basically dueling it out. You know, you'll get things like kind of that traditional kind of.
Today is Thor's Day.
Yeah, right. You know, maybe Thor's Day where everyone's Thor, or things like 5v5 all mids, you know, on the Joust map, those kind of things. So you'll get some nice little fun.
We had Arachnophobia.
All Arachnes. That's like, you know, kind of like your traditional Pudge Wars sort of thing. You know, you have so we'll have a lot of options there. I mean, I think, you know, is that something that we will do the kind of things like, you know, like you start with 10,000 gold. Like, do we have that kind of flexibility around it, or is it all going to be okay? So it's going to be all kinds of stuff.
It's going to be some matches may have a limited number of items. For example, only male physical characters only with magic items.
With magic items, right?
Okay?
Right.
Or magic characters with only physical items, or starting with more cash, fast leveling, slow leveling. Every day is a new day. We'll probably put out what the next few days in a row are going to be.
Okay.
And you do get also first match of the win bonus
for that queue.
Okay,
so you can go. So basically, be the kind of thing like you log in, and well, you get that for all the queues, like where you get an arena first one. So basically, when you get into Smite, you know, maybe you can
have four first matches of the day bonuses.
So there's a lot of opportunity to get extra favors. So like some of those, you know, low favor skins and gods that you maybe had your eyes on, maybe that you can spend some time enjoying some of the other game modes, pick up a first one of the day in each game mode every day, and then if you're really smart, you'll like camp the reset on the day.
Huh?
Camp the reset on the day.
Camp the reset?
Yeah, like when it rolls over.
It rolls over to the next
like
day.
play 5 games, roll over, play 5 more games.
But then it doesn't matter for the next 24 hours.
True.
that makes no sense.
Well, that's how people like to get it all in, man. But yeah, so yeah, will these things be on rotation? Like, will it be like Monday is this, Tuesday is this?
We have so many of them that they're probably not going on rotation, but they are themed by day of the week. So, for example, Monday may be Magic Gods Day.
There's like 5 options for Monday,
Right.
and they're Monday games.
Oh, Monday actually may be like Pantheon Day. So it's
Like
Chinese versus Norse or some other Pantheon.
Okay.
Tuesday may be single god only day, where we select a Cupid or a Mir or whatever, and it's 5-on-5 on that game mode.
Okay.
And so on. So there'll be different themes for the day and for weeks.
Fun. Okay, so there's Match of the Day, guys. Brand new feature coming to you, giving you a lot more options to get first match of the day, win bonuses, and some new, you know, kind of fun custom things that you wouldn't be able to do on your own. It should be a good time for you.
We've been having a blast.
Yeah, I've heard lots of cackling all the way across the building, so it seems like a good time.
But they're usually only fun to play like a couple of times, and that's it.
Right.
Then they get stupid.
And then you're raging. Yeah, so it should be something that we change up pretty frequently. I mean, it's not going to be the kind of thing where it's like, oh, God, I got to play Hades for Hades. So it should be pretty fun. Moving right along. God changes. So some gods have been nerfed and buffed. The most significant changes are Cupid is back to physical scaling on his abilities. Freya now has additional lifesteal at base, I imagine.
Well, lifesteal when she hits one ability and or 2 abilities.
Okay, so number 1 and number 2.
One will get physical lifesteal, and number 2 will have magical lifesteal.
Oh, interesting. So
when it's active.
Interesting stuff. Bacchus has reduced damage, so he just takes less damage flat out. And Thor Rift no longer does damage. It still stuns. It still blocks. It just doesn't do any damage.
Right, but now the stun starts at 1 second with no damage versus where it was before.
Right. And so, I read that as Bacchus takes less damage, but he just doesn't do as much flat out. It's a nerf. It's not a buff.
What is?
For Bacchus.
For Bacchus is a nerf.
Okay. I read it as like
Thor.
he has damage resistance, just like he has reduced damage taken.
Some of his damage abilities were changed to, I think one of the buffs that he had for damage was changed to be a resist instead. So he does less damage, and he has a little bit more tankiness.
Okay. So maybe as number 1, the chug will give him, instead of attack speed and damage, it gives, or not attack speed, but just damage, it gives him, you know, resistance.
You will want to play Bacchus a lot more just as a tank now.
Okay, he's less a bruiser, more a tank now.
Yeah, he can be played as a bruiser, but the items that you're going to get are going to push you towards one direction or the other.
Okay. So again, Thor's stun only stuns now, no damage, and it does wall still. And remember, with the focus changes that went over a couple slides ago, that stun is a 1-second stun at base.
Yes.
And you'll have to build specific focus items that will, I don't want to say drastically, but will limit your damage.
They will drastically.
Okay, so it is drastic. So drastically limit your damage on Thor if you do want to be that more support style with those
Right.
2-second stuns.
Right.
Additional lifesteal. Now, I see the question in chat as well. Do those abilities have lifesteal now in live?
Does what?
Does 1 and 2 have lifesteal in live
No.
for Freya? Okay.
No, that was added.
Okay, so she has lifesteal on those abilities now. I think a pretty good targeted buff for her, as her main kind of issue is sustainability early game. It does take a lot of health pots, or I'm sorry, mana pots, but now you won't have to worry about necessarily that life and health pot deal. You can just rock with the mana ones and save yourself some money. But moving right along, God ability changes example. So this is how the focus changes are going to affect the god. So here's the example of On Her. We'll try to blow through this pretty quickly so we can get to talking about more of the theory behind it. But so physical power reduced by 20% for On Her. Shifting Sand slows by 21% and a 20% damage buff. Impale stuns for 2 seconds when impaled, plus damage. Enemies are knocked back on impact for Disperse, which is the leap. Now, enemies target physical power reduced by 10%, increasing with focus up to 20%. So that's at 100 focus, you have 20% damage reduction from enemies.
Basically, every one of these utilities was cut in half.
And then you can double.
And then you can increase it back to where it was by getting up to 100 more.
Gotcha.
Focus, and the focus is directly proportional to the increase.
Now, okay, so like everyone here that's just like, oh my god, On Her's terrible now. You got to remember that, like, all of these durations, everybody has half. So, you know, basically he's just as strong relative as he was, but not necessarily as potent. Like if this just happened to him in a vacuum, he would be quite significantly less strong. But I mean, everyone's going to be kind of nerfed this way. So, but yeah, physical power reduced by 10% with focus up to 20, slow 10% with focus up to 20, damage up by 10%, focus to 20. God stun for 1 second by impale, increasing with focus up to 2%.
It should be up to 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Okay, yeah, that's just the typo, guys. So yeah, so you know, with 100 focus, you get 2 seconds of stun. And then less knockback on the. That was actually a question I had earlier. Was like things like knock up, knock back, focus will affect those
in some situations.
Okay.
Not all of them.
And what is the kind of, for a, let's say, not non-starting item, how much focus would a typical focus bearing item have?
At max level, they range between 15. Most of them probably 15 or 20.
Okay.
Some will go up as much as 30.
So you will have to build at least 4 items to get
3 or 4 items
to get to that cap.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, of course, On Her is affected pretty heavily by this change because all of his abilities can be argued that would be, you know, focus based. So moving on, item changes. So significant amount of item changing, obviously to make way for this new focusing. Plus, I believe some kind of philosophical changes to how they work, right?
Yes.
In general. So,
actually, it's more of the philosophical. There's only a relatively small amount was spent on the focus element.
Okay.
A lot more was spent on rechanging the entire way the items operate now.
Okay. So items now have been reevaluated and looked at in terms of how you know what stats would be on an item. So all items in the game have been changed and rebalanced. All item stats are much more specific to their categories. So it is a physical, magical, defensive, or aura item. Starter items have been changed and cost 750 gold. So you now have additional starter items besides kind of what in the game now. I think it's just Death's Toll and Circlet, right?
They were not used well before.
Yeah, indeed.
So now we have some new ones that you can use as an option if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can't upgrade them; they're relatively cheap.
Okay.
In some situations, if people like them, they're good starter items.
So we've added items basically that you get at rank 3. I guess, you know, they have 1 rank, you buy them, and you know they are starting items specifically.
They're more similar to the Doran items in LoL, since somebody did.
Okay, so yeah, it's like a Doran's Blade, Doran's Shield, I believe is what they're called in League. Yeah, so let's I mean, unless I'm assuming there's more detail to come here, so let's go ahead and pop on over. So here's some examples of item.
So let me talk a little bit more. Besides the starter items,
sorry. Yeah.
All the items have been significantly changed to be much more focused on the roll now. So if you're buying physical items, they're going to be very powerful physical damage items, but they will not give you other stats.
No health.
Like health or mana. They typically don't give you the stats unless the stat has something to do with the way that item operates, but they will be much stronger. There are also somewhere around 10 new items added to the game, so there's a lot more options now. And at the same time, if you want to get some of these more utility items and such, you would have to go towards aura items. Defense items are very strong for defense, but what will change in the builds is that if you build a pure carry, for example, if you took Anhor before or Artemis and you build them as a pure carry, you will actually have much higher damage output than you did before, but you'll be even more of a glass cannon.
Right.
And he'll be very easy to kill. If you build very a tank straight out with every item, you will be able to handle a lot of damage.
Much more tanky.
But you won't be able to hit anything for any damage. So players will need to balance out their builds a lot more than they did before. And each item has a very specific passive that goes along with it to assist in the type of build that you're trying to create to counter the enemy.
Okay. Are we going to reset ranked elo? Like, is this like a season-based change sort of thing? Like, it's going to be like, we're starting from scratch? Like,
well, the first season will start out when we actually go live, most likely.
Okay, we'll cut it there and reset, basically.
Yeah,
something around that is the idea. Because I know a lot of people ask all the time, like, are you going to reset rank? Blah, blah, blah. So there you go, guys. I mean, basically, it's going to be one of those
somewhere
things.
In the first quarter.
Somewhere in the first quarter next year, we'll be looking at that stuff.
2 to 3 months from now.
Okay, so yes, there will be, but it's not going to be, something that's coming in the immediate future. I think one of those things where it's like you don't want to upset too many things at once. You want the really good players playing against each other.
We also have to keep balancing things.
That's right.
So while we're doing a lot of balance changes, it doesn't make sense to reset it.
Got it. For those of you that are asking about where you can get into the PTS, you need to be level 15.
That's going to be at the end there.
And the link is actually up on our Twitch page. So if you F5, you've been here a while, you'll be able to see it in the description of the video or a description of the stream. But yeah, there you go. So let's take a look at some examples of item changes. Chin's Blades.
So this is an example of an item that had good damage stats on it, but also it had a couple of faults which people didn't like. Number one, a lot of people didn't like the chance on hit, and second of all, it had a health stat to it. So we removed the health stat. You notice the item is a little more expensive now because it has higher stats for physical and for attack speed, and we changed the on hit to be a definite number every single hit, which is 2.5% of the maximum health of the enemy. Okay, yeah, and
it does cost 30% more, 35% more there. No health, 50% more physical power, and 100% more attack speed.
And I think this is the highest attack speed item in the game right now.
Okay, so Chin's Blade's still good, and of course, but you are getting significantly less on hit. Magic damage, or no, look at that! It deals physical now.
No, it's physical because now it'll work with your physical penetration, but it is actually before it was 3% per hit on the average. Now it's 2.5 of physical, but you do get your penetrations.
Right on. Some other changes.
Fatalis, for those of you that wrote it, has been completely changed also.
Yeah, Fatalis is actually a really good item. I bought it today in a playtest, and I was like, holy moly.
And it looks totally different.
Yeah. Other changes. So here's just going to blow through these real quick and then talk about them. Base movement speed changes.
There was a question in there. There's always a cap on attack speed, which is 2.5 attacks per second.
That's right. So yeah, you can't really go through the roof with it. But I think in live currently the attack speed cap is 2. Is that right?
It's 2.5.
It's 2.5 alive?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 2.5. So you can just get to that attack speed cap probably in a 4-item build instead of a 6-item build would be my guess looking at these values. Gold spooling changes from Conquest. The 4GS is down to 3 now. Domination has gone up. I'm sorry, from 6 to 8.
It's gone from 8 to 6.
8 to 6. Okay. So both of those have had spooling changes reduced. There's a new God screen. It looks really nice. That's sortable, that kind of stuff for newer players. There's, of course, UI updates, as we have in most of them. We have a whole new Joust map that we'll be going over tomorrow, guys. It's really, really nice looking. Conquest queue consolidation. Normal, novice, and 5v5 queues now allow 4-man teams. Thank God. That's one of the ones that I'm very excited about, certainly. Fixes so that users will spend less time in matching. So this is something that we kind of talked about when we implemented that, was that we would be looking at how to reduce all of these times. More deserter penalty, 30-minute minimum on deserter, so don't leave. And then lots of cleanups, other changes. Is there anything you want to touch on specifically here to...
So we moved the speed down a little bit, but we kept the cap higher, so you can actually build up to the current high speed if you'd like. The spooling change was done because a lot of people requested it, and it looked like it would still work well with it. The guide screen, the home screen, there's a variety of UI updates that I think people will enjoy. The queue consolidation was done because we will match up 5 versus 5s and 4 versus 4s most frequently. So the system will take teams very strongly into account. In fact, it's one of the first things that it does.
Okay.
Is it takes, if it looks at 5 versus 5s, it puts them together, and then only if there's a mismatch, it will then take a 5-person team and a 4 and a 1 and put that together and so on.
So it will be very discriminating with who it'll match you if you're in a 4-man team.
Yes.
Okay. So that makes sense, guys. So basically, 3-man teams are, less high priority in terms of being put into the right bucket of sorting, where 4-mans and 5-mans will, in general, be playing each other more often than not, it sounds like, based on that. Moving right along, here is the information, guys.
And by the way,
Sorry.
that 5 versus 5 and 4 versus 4 is already in Arena and in Domination.
That's right.
Working that way.
So, so basically, I mean, this is just something that's being migrated over to Conquest. You've seen that stuff in...
Most people don't even know
in Arena and Domination. So, I mean, it's unless you feel like that is a horrible experience for you, you shouldn't really notice very much of a difference in Conquest unless you somehow are able to read the matchmaking. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. But testing process and logistics to get involved with the PTS, guys. It's made on a test server. It's going live now-ish. So that's basically being uploaded now. You got to be level 15 plus, so if you're not there, go grind it up. There will be limited hours for testing, so you'll know. We will communicate to you basically when it's up and when it's down. It will require a separate download, so you will need to have the 3-4 gigs of memory available. And you can get the information on the forums. There's a link to download that also on the video page here, just underneath the stream. One question that has come up a lot is Shablanke. Will he be in?
Shablanke will not be in.
He is not in the PTS. Okay, there you are. It is down right now, guys.
Now, one thing about matchmaking, which people always confuse a bit, so let's give a little more information on that. Matchmaking will not put together a player over level 15 with a player under level 15 unless the player under level 15 is teamed up with somebody higher that's 15 or over.
Okay.
So if you see somebody in your match that's level 8 and you are level 20, what will happen is somebody else brought them into the match. That's the only time it happens.
Gotcha. There you go. And that is the end of our presentation here. Do you guys have any questions?